Good evening, and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Nick Shesky. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we take a look back at the stories from our Next Gen team, from NASA putting a new rover on Mars to how cybersecurity is advancing to protect you from hackers.
The University of Arizona was chosen by NASA to lead a mission that hopes to see galaxies in a way they've never seen before. The mission, titled Aspera, is receiving $20 million in funding to create a telescope. And the principal investigator leading the mission is one of the youngest to ever do it. Reporter Julia Sandor went down to Tucson to see how the mission is taking off.
It's not often that NASA approves a postdoctoral researcher's proposal, but that was the case for Carlos Vargas.
Typically people propose for these things over 3, 4, 5 years and get lucky every now and then, but it's pretty unheard of for someone to get one on their first try. And this was our very first shot at this mission, so I couldn't have been happier to be selected.
His project, named Aspera, would create a small satellite telescope to study galaxy evolution. It is small enough to fit into the trunk of a car, which is very small when compared to the Hubble Space Telescope. Science team member Dennis Zaritsky explains what they hope to spot with the telescope.
So we can see that there's some gas somewhere, some of the time, around some of these galaxies. Aspera, the aim of Aspera is to actually take a picture of this gas, not just infer it by absorption from here and there, but actually look at a galaxy, a nearby galaxy, and take a picture of that hot gas that surrounds the galaxy. And that hasn't been done before.
He says they are going to detect the gas and measure what the gas is made of. Deputy Principal Investigator Erica Hamden says the project will help them better understand galaxies and the intergalactic medium.
And so we're trying to find the gas that's not in the galaxy, but above and below it, as a way to understand the sort of life cycle of galaxies and how do they interact with the environment around them.
They will only be able to look at a few galaxies, but they hope to get a sample so they can compare environments and spot trends. Even seeing this gas is difficult, but Vargas says that over the past 10 years, there have been huge leaps and bounds in this arena.
So a lot of this gas we're trying to observe is extremely faint. So the light from it is very, very dim. So you need to build telescopes and detectors that are extremely sensitive. And really just the technology hasn't been there yet.
And now that they have the technology, they're preparing to build a telescope that will eventually be launched into space.
It takes a village to do missions like this. No one person could ever do this on their own for sure.
In Tucson, Julia Sandor, Cronkite News.
The mission is on track to launch in late 2024.
Well, there was another Mars landing on NASA for the NASA team today. Arizona State School of Earth and Space Exploration is celebrating the historic event with an online webinar. Our reporter Nick Shesky has more on ASU's part in the landing.
This morning, students at Arizona State University gathered digitally to celebrate the landing of the newest Mars rover, the Perseverance. The feeling in the room was definitely an anxious one as ASU students watched this historic event. ASU scientists helped with a number of components on the mission, including the Mastcam Z, a high-definition camera that they hope will send back vivid 3D images of the Martian surface. The webinar featured speeches from several professors from the School of Earth and Space Exploration, including Jim Bell.
Is because it's the closest place to home where we can test that hypothesis. Are we alone? And so that's why so many of the world's space agencies, so many planetary scientists and others are so excited about this. It's why astrobiologists are excited about Mars.
While the Mastcam Z is just one part of this mission, another piece of technology breaking ground is the Ingenuity, a small helicopter that NASA hopes will take otherworldly flight. All week, the scientific world has been counting down to Mars 2020. But for Katie Stack Morgan, the countdown started all the way back in 2017.
This is really the first time that I'm experiencing the full lead up to landing a rover on Mars. And so the stakes feel higher for me personally and professionally.
The Perseverance rover's mission is to seek signs of ancient life on Mars. The rover will collect samples of materials from the Martian surface to prepare them to be picked up by a future Mars mission. The smaller sidekick to the Perseverance is the Ingenuity, also known as the Mars helicopter.
The Ingenuity helicopter doesn't have a stated science mission like the rover or the instruments on the rover contributing to that science mission. And so it really is a demonstration of the technology. Can we do it?
The Ingenuity will do a series of 5 test flights over a month to see if the helicopter is capable of working in an atmosphere much thinner than Earth's. This will be the first time ever that a man-made object has flown on a different planet.
Every mission wants to be able to use some combination of tried and true technologies that it has a high confidence will work, and to be able to push the envelope and do something pretty daring.
The successful landing marks the rewarding end of a very stressful time for many scientists, but the work on Mars is really just beginning.
And I honestly think that the closest thing is being pregnant. At the end of your pregnancy, when you know something big is about to come, but it's not quite there yet, and you're like, oh, I should get a lot of sleep right now because I know in a week I'm not going to be getting any sleep. And so we're birthing a rover on the surface of Mars.
NASA's dreams of flying on other worlds are really only beginning with the Ingenuity. Another NASA project in the works, the Dragonfly, is set to be launched in 2026. Its destination? Titan, the largest of Saturn's moons. In the studio, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News.
Is working from home making us more susceptible to hackers? Cronkite News reporter Nick Shesky sat down with several experts in the field to find out how to protect yourself.
The COVID-19 pandemic has got a lot of people working from home. But with so many businesses operating remotely, are we still cyberly secure? I sat down with Salim Hariri, a professor at the University of Arizona, to discuss cybersecurity in these cyberly distant times.
We call it in technical terms the attack surface. The attack surface, like you have a house, somebody can get inside your house from the doors, from the windows, and all of this. So with the Zoom, the attack surface where you could be compromised becomes huge because there's so many opportunities for the bad guy to penetrate. And
Hariri and others at the University of Arizona are working to promote what he calls zero trust principles to fight this.
So the idea is that anytime you interact with someone or receiving data, we call it transactions. And that transactions, we're going to assume it's malicious until I can verify and validate all the components involved.
Now this all may sound very scary, but Haley Mills, a member of the Cybersecurity Council of Arizona, says that you really shouldn't worry, because as the hackers get better, so do the defenders.
It's always going to be this sort of cat and mouse back and forth of attackers leveling up their game, trying new and novel techniques, and then defenders coming up with new and novel techniques to catch those attackers, and that's just going to keep happening forever.
Mills says there are things you can do to better protect your data. She recommends using unique passwords and definitely not clicking any suspicious links that you find on the internet.
It seems like this vague threat that you can't do much about. I like to balance the message between don't worry too much, but also there are some things you can take into control.
No matter what new technologies may come our way, there will always be people like Hariri and Mills fighting to keep our data secure.
As always, the new technology comes in, they bring the new opportunities and new problems.
Along with using unique passwords and not clicking any suspicious links, Mills also recommends freezing your credit when it's not in use. Doing those 3 simple things should dramatically reduce your susceptibility to being hacked. In the broadcast center, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News.
Should students be in control of their own academic destiny? Researchers at the University of Arizona say yes. Our reporter Nick Shesky has more on Unblocked Ed, a program being developed by U Arizona.
When you think of blockchain, you may think of cryptocurrencies, but U Arizona is trying to use the same technology to give students power over their own educational records. All universities are not the same, and not every university is a perfect match for every student.
I started looking into universities, so like my school, and then like Clemson, Florida, all of those other schools.
Sade Lloyd found that out when she tried to transfer from Arizona State University to the University of Alabama.
I just looked at what schools would transfer all of my credits, so I didn't have to retake my classes. I just didn't want to stay in school longer than I already had to. And the nursing program is 5 semesters, and I didn't want to end up graduating in 23 or almost in 24.
Greg Heilemann, the vice provost at the University of Arizona, says that 35% of students will transfer at least once in their college careers, and he admits transferring universities is not an easy or a fair process.
It's inequitable because the students who are transferring are more likely to be low income, more likely to be first generation, more likely to be from underrepresented groups.
To fight this, Heilemann and others at U-Arizona are developing a program named Unblocked Ed, using blockchain technologies, to give students verified, trustworthy copies of their transcripts that they, in turn, can send to any university of their choosing.
We ask for a transcript from the institution you went to, and you have to receive it directly from them because we need to have trust that the transcript has not been modified. Well, blockchain is a way of giving you that trust and cutting out the third party.
Heilemann says the new system will streamline the transfer process by collecting data from universities all across the country, starting with the institutions in Kentucky.
You can investigate transfer between any pairs of school, or you could have credits from 3 or 4 different universities in that state and see how they apply in one program.
The goal is to give students like Sade and the thousands of others who transfer every year control over their academic lives.
You own your educational records. You should be able to choose who you share them with without a third party having to know about it.
Heilemann and the rest of his team at U-Arizona are hoping to have a fully functional prototype by the end of April. But a fully functioning system for all students at all universities is still a little ways away. In the studio, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News. The University of Arizona College of Medicine in Phoenix has kicked off its annual Connect to STEM program, part of the 10th annual SciTech Festival. But it will be presented a little differently this year due to social distancing limits. Cronkite News reporter Rayleigh Klein shows us how the event was reimagined to an online interaction pavilion.
Connect to STEM is one of the Phoenix community's largest outreach events, attracting over 40,000 participants in the last 6 years. STEM celebrates science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine career pathways. But how do you engage in over 100 hands-on activities in a virtual world?
So we've done our best to recreate these experiences in a virtual space, and we think it will still be fun and engaging and have a high level of energy for the event.
In-person event favorites like the Wild Cat Play Hospital and the Brainworks Lab will be back this year. But even if things felt a little different, the goal was the same.
We really continue the original mission of Connect to STEM, which is inspiring young minds, inspiring young people to explore and discover what really appeals to them.
And the mission extends far beyond just the classroom. There's a growing need for workforce development in STEM careers as so many jobs remain unfilled. There's also glaring need for diversity. According to the United States Census Bureau, although women make up 48% of the workforce in America, they only represent 27% of STEM workers. So, inspiring young minds from all walks of life is the best way to ensure the future of these critical careers.
We need to go all the way back into elementary school and high school to make sure that we are inspiring women, students of color, very young, so that they are ready to pursue healthcare careers.
In Phoenix, Rayleigh Klein, Cronkite News.
Televeda, a Scottsdale-based community engagement platform for people over 65, connects teens with isolated seniors to combat loneliness during the pandemic. Cronkite News reporter Delaney White talked with the seniors and students.
Helping Hands Unite, a club created by 2 students in Pembroke Pines, Florida, wanted to help seniors experiencing isolation during the pandemic. So they reached out to Televeda to help them connect and have some fun.
Bingo. A common ground for 2 very different age groups, both isolated and stuck at home. High schoolers in Pembroke Pines, Florida connected with seniors to play games and listen to music.
It was pretty fun to see, like, when some of the seniors got bingo, like their excitement.
I thought it was really entertaining to see how excited they would get when they got bingo.
It's a good opportunity. I get to help people. I get to see people smile, and it just makes me happy, But it's different to see how they react. Their humor is different than ours, I loved it though.
Both the high schoolers and the seniors enjoy each other's company and find they actually have a lot in common.
I also like to watch Cheers, and I knew one of the elders really liked Cheers. I also saw someone who liked 90 Day Fiancé, and I was like, oh, I could relate to that, you know?
And the teens learned the seniors aren't afraid to tackle technology.
It's such a great way for us to show the younger generation that this is a myth, that, you know, older adults cannot use technology. That's a myth. They're actually so good at it.
The teens explain that their generation is less social and being confined to Zoom doesn't help.
Like over Zoom, usually, like nobody ever talks. So it was like different, I guess.
But the seniors aren't afraid to get chatty.
The younger generation is like a little more shy. Like it's a little harder to make friends nowadays, like on Zoom. People rarely talk to each other. But with the seniors, they were a lot more open. You know, they were laughing, telling jokes. But like kids on Zoom, they don't really like want to interact with each other too much unless they have to.
Televeda users Missy and Gail Hutchison are thankful the teens are helping create a sense of community during isolating times.
They really had their stuff together. They had a goal. They had goals. They were, you know, doing things to help other people and to get involved in community. And that's a real important thing, especially now, but always, always, always community is.
And for some teens, the project has an even more special meaning.
I know my grandfather, he just passed away from COVID and he was alone. So it felt good. And I couldn't say anything to him, but at least I could help other seniors.
Continuing to connect during a time of isolation.
Many senior living centers have signed up for the service in order to keep their residents engaged in social interaction. In the studio, Delaney White, Cronkite News.
That's it for this special edition of Cronkite News Tonight. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for Break It Down next.